So today's going to be a little bit of a different video style. I'm working on a bit of a longer tutorial video for thumping, and it's taking me a little more than a week, so I thought it'd be a good time just to sit down and chat, because I don't think I've really done that yet. I also wanted to talk a little bit maybe about movement and why I've kind of been going on about it in a few of my videos and why it keeps making appearances in other tutorial videos, and just explain, where that comes from and why I think it's important and kind of a cool way to think about practicing in general. But first, before we get to that, Happy New Year if you're into that kind of thing. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're a new face. We just hit 100 subscribers this week, so thank you for all those people who are subscribing and checking out these videos. It means a lot to know that there are other people out there who are interested in practicing and getting better with the guitar and just super into this weird stuff that, we dedicate our time to. It also might be a good time to just introduce myself to all the new people who are checking out the channel. So hello, my name is Thomas, and I am a guitar player and lover of everything sound. I've been playing guitar for about 20 years and teaching in some capacity for about 15. I've developed a bit of a passion for, spreading information and helping people along their journey. I've done the whole music degree thing a couple of times, so I have that background, but right now in my life I'm just super interested in helping out people who want to get better at music and get better at their instrument. So I wanted to talk a little bit about movement today and why I am kind of obsessed with it right now in my practicing life. I think it really started a few years ago when I picked up one of my students who is an adult, and we're trying to learn scales and chords and songs, and this is all in the classical setting, so we're also trying to learn about technique and how you're supposed to sit with the guitar and have good posture and everything that goes along with that. And I was noticing a lot of the things, this person has a bit of a musical background already, a lot of the things that we normally talk about in terms of theory and chord construction, that stuff was fine. That was easy enough to understand. But the main barrier was actually physically doing these things on the guitar. It's not an ergonomic instrument from out of the box, I don't think. It's a little bit awkward. Other instruments like violin can also make the same claim. A lot of instruments take a lot of work in order to play it comfortably. Just sticking a piece of wood on your body in some weird position and then having to sit with that for hours and hours and hours throughout your life, it can have a bit of a physical toll on you. So with this adult student, I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be the case and that they would have to end up quitting after a couple of years just because their wrist was sore or their fingers hurt or their neck was getting kinked up. So we started focusing on how to play the guitar as a mechanical object, more so than the musical aspects of it. Fast forward a little bit to when I got my 8-string guitar, and I pull this thing out of the case, and I just notice how big the neck is. It's a good chunk wider than a regular 6-string neck. And I think just the physical action of having to reach for those 2 extra strings and do chords and things that might be spread across the fretboard just made me realize how much of a physical practice this actually is. And it's not just something that's contained within your fingers, it incorporates a lot of parts of your body. This is kind of when I became super interested in the ergonomics of playing and sitting properly and making sure your neck and shoulders and back were aligned and everything in your arm was okay. I've had injuries in the past where I've had to go to physiotherapy. My whole left side is kind of weaker from just sitting in this kinked position playing guitar for 20 years. So I guess just at this age, I'm becoming more conscious of the effect that that has on the body long term. I think the final piece in me becoming a little bit obsessed with movement and the physical aspect of the guitar is confronting one of my biggest weaknesses, which is playing fast. I've always kind of avoided it. I just didn't think I was going to be a fast player. Maybe it wasn't in my bones, something like that. Whatever excuses I had subconsciously, I think I was just avoiding it because I was a little bit afraid of putting in that effort and, tackling something that I was really bad at. And I was really bad at it and I didn't understand why. What teachers told me is you could practice something slow with a metronome and you just play it slow, no stress, and then eventually you'll get faster. And it was kind of like this disconnect between that slow, methodical, relaxed practice and then in real playing situations where I had to then play quickly and I would get tense and super agitated and my hands would tense up really and I wouldn't be able to play anything that I was practicing. So when I actually tried to figure out how to deal with this, I realized that the movements that are required to play quickly on the guitar are different, fundamentally different than when you're playing slowly. There's a lot of small things that your fingers and hands might be doing that you have to eliminate from your playing in order to have an economy of movement that allows you to play quickly. So looking at the movement of these practices kind of opened the door to what I should be working on and how to improve. So I think the question is now, is this way of thinking actually useful for people in their day-to-day practice, or is it just something that maybe is dawning on me for the first time and is helping me in my own practice? Well, I do think, and I do see it being very applicable and very useful to players of all levels. So a couple examples, with beginner students, they often come with no musical knowledge. Guitar is a common first instrument to learn, so they come with no idea about how chords are made, what scales are made up of, how to do arpeggios, what even is an arpeggio, and their main interest in the beginning is just playing some chords, figuring out how to play a song on the guitar. In order to do this, we don't need to learn theory. We don't need to learn the modes of melodic minor scale. We just need to learn how to get the fingers on the strings accurately in time with the strumming hand so that you can actually play a song. So I found describing that the movements of these chord changes is a super useful way to get beginners quickly into the world of guitar. So for example, if they're playing a C chord to a G chord, rather than trying to just say, here's a chord chart, dots on a piece of paper, two-dimensional, push where those dots are, that's not the reality of playing guitar. The reality of playing guitar is that you have to, tilt your elbow in, you have to make sure your wrist is straight, you have to bend your fingers in weird different positions, like this finger is straighter than this finger, and then your wrist is a little bit spread and your thumb has to be in a certain spot on the neck. And that's just one chord. And then if you have to change, you have to undo all of that positioning you just figured out, rotate everything out, swap the fingers, there's a lot of little mechanical things that are happening, and pointing those out is really useful in figuring out how the guitar works. At intermediate levels, I've had students who are learning more complex techniques, such as like double stop bends, quick position shifts, more difficult chord changes and arpeggios, and the list goes on. But one example I can think of here that happened pretty recently with another student of mine was that they were learning how to bend. They weren't having very much luck, and they're having a hard time getting over kind of a half bend. That was as far as they could go without crazy amounts of effort. So pointed out one thing, and that was going to be the movement of the hand with the bend. So rather than just using your fingers, you can actually move your hand back a bit, pull the elbow out, and then use your whole arm to push that string up in one motion, and you'll get a lot more strength behind it. As soon as I said that, and they tried it, it worked. It was just like, boom, clicked into place, and they understood the movement of the technique and could do it. And then lastly, for students who are maybe at a more advanced level, I think it's also a very useful thing to be considering, because when you're working on very difficult pieces or difficult techniques, you have to be aware of your whole body. So like I was saying before, worrying about, is the neck straight? Are the shoulders relaxed? Is your back straight? Is your core tight that you're not slouching and like giving away in your back, which maybe will make your whole left side tilt? You're not doing yourself any favors by putting these weaknesses into the chain when you're playing. And then personally, when I went to the 8-string guitar and I started learning, some Animals as Leader songs just to get used to playing on those low strings and how that might feel, some of those songs are fast and very difficult to play. One perfect example of this is the song Inner Assassins, and that riff that Javier is playing in the beginning, that's kind of underneath the melody. There's some very fast position shifts, and during those position shifts, there's like a whole hand rotation that has to happen. And I had the notes, I had each part individually, but to get that movement, I had to think of it as a movement, like a sport movement almost. So I guess all of this is really just to say that no matter what level you're at, there's always something to be gained by looking at the guitar as something physical that you're acting out with in real life. Like, it's not some sort of theoretical on paper thing. It's real, it's three-dimensional, it requires muscles and tendons and flesh to play. So this is really the reason why I made a whole series about different movements on the guitar when I rebooted the channel a few months ago. Each video kind of looks at a different way of moving across the guitar and tries to break apart the complex compound movements that are happening. But this whole idea of playing an instrument as a movement or sport is underlying the whole series. Feel free to check those out if you're interested in this concept and want to just, maybe test it out, see if you have any weaknesses that are easily fixed, or you can reveal something about your playing you didn't know. And if you're interested in doing a bit of a deeper dive, I do offer online lessons, and maybe if you just aren't sure if you want to sign up for a full set of paid lessons yet, you can sign up for just one of my free 20-minute lessons where we can talk about what might be good for you to practice, and you can express any difficulties you're having and things you want to get better at. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. Again, it's kind of a different video than I normally make as I work on this thumping tutorial video for you guys for next week. So stay tuned for that. So with all that said, Happy New Year, and I hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and happy practicing.